Hell yeah, my friend. It's a fucking huge honor. I mean it. Love that project since I'm born. And yeah, we grow up with those songs. So it's a huge honor to have you on our Quebec radio show PPR. But maybe for people that don't recognize your beautiful face or voice, who the hell are you, man?
I am John Levin, and I play in a band called Dokken.
Oh yeah,
Guitar.
Doc. Yeah, Dokken. It's such a huge history. I mean, you've been doing that for so many years, and it's crazy that the project is still alive, but the passion and the fire is still there, and that you're able, with all those years, to create something each time that are solid, different, and really original. But I wonder, let's get back to when you were a kid. I'm curious how you start discovering music, and did anybody around you influence you, parents, friends, or whatever?
Yeah, we had it started for me very, very early. We had a piano in our living room. That was basically the only thing in the living room was a piano. And I remember my older sister playing, and she was able to play some classical pieces. She's 6 years older than me, so there was quite a difference. If maybe I was very young, uh, and then I remember starting to fiddle around a little bit on it. And for some reason, for me, like I had a real difficult time learning school stuff, not math, but like reading. I just couldn't. I mean, honestly, I got to sixth grade and I really had a difficult time. I definitely have what people now refer to as like attention deficit disorder. So I was, for some reason though, that part of my brain that couldn't do the schooling stuff that well, I was able to do the music. For some reason it just came really naturally to me. So from the piano, I found my way to um, violin. When I remember violin, I was in third grade, however old you are then, and then or second grade, second or third grade, and then from there I got to trumpet, and I became a pretty good horn player. And then around 9 years old, I found a guitar in our basement, 9 or 10. I found a nylon string guitar in the basement that I guess was my mother's. I don't know that she ever played it, but it was just lying around there.
Was it the light and the songs when you saw it, like, oh, the only guitar?
I I was so young. I don't. I remember the guitar. I remember it was this nylon string guitar, and then across the street from my house, I used to take lessons in there. They'd give. I don't remember if I had to pay, but I was very young. But then here's when things changed. A friend of mine, his name was Jeff Frank. I remember this is now. I was probably 12 years old. He had an electric guitar and an amp, and he had this black book. It had said it was called The Beatles Complete, and it had the tablature for all the Beatles songs. And I was familiar with some. Who wasn't familiar with some Beatles songs from your parents or whatever? Uh, and I just started looking at it, and it had like what's called tablature, like it showed you where to put your fingers. Because I can't read music. I mean, very little. I really, for the most part, I can't. So, but it had the tablature thing, so I started learning how to play chords, and I learned how to play like a couple of Beatles songs, like Eleanor Rigby, then here comes the sun, um, and a couple other ones. Um, so that's where it sort of started from that point. And then I remember being 11 years old, and my dad got me my first electric guitar. It was a Univox High Flyer. It was like a copy of a Mosrite. And then I learned chords on that. By the time I was 13, I was in a band. And the band I was in, we would play parties and things like that. And I remember we were playing like uh, the Grateful Dead. We had a couple of Grateful Dead songs we played, and I don't remember the rest of them. But I hadn't gotten to distortion yet. But then when I all of a sudden I heard the Who, and I was playing with this band, and the singer said to me, "Man, your guitar doesn't sound right. It's too clean." And then I discovered you had to have distortion. You know, so that was my very early beginning. And then of course from there, eventually, my first like what got me better as a player really was when I started learning how to play Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix solos. It was first Eric Clapton. So I had a teacher. I took a couple lessons from someone, and he showed me how to do these very simple bends. just, I don't know if you play guitar, but these 2-string bends. And he told me to practice that, and he showed me vibrato. And once I got that was the big stepping stone. Like that, I think, just as a player looking back, if you're teaching someone, the big transition is from getting to play basic chords to learning how to do some bends properly and putting vibrato on there. And that's where you start developing it, and then it went from there. From there, I started, learned a couple Hendrix songs. Then all of a sudden, boom, someone played Eruption for me when I was 15 years old or 14 years old. And of course, like, mine, I was convinced it was like a keyboard. I couldn't even imagine it was a guitar. I didn't know what it was. Like, that can't be a guitar. You can't do that on guitar.
Yeah, but Eddie was playing the keyboard, so maybe.
So that was it. Then I got Eddie. Then I got into Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, George Lynch.
Wow.
Those were like, I went through the gamut. Always Van Halen. We didn't have internet back then, so if you wanted to learn how to play something, we used to put the record on, vinyl. Now people know what it is again today because it went away for a long time, but it's back in vogue, right? I put the vinyl on and sort of slow it down and try and see if I could play it. That's how I learned. Like today, it's different because if you want to learn how to play Eruption, there's 100 videos. You can scroll through them and see someone showing you how to play it probably perfectly. But, I didn't know how to play it perfectly. I only knew how to play it the way my ear thought it was being played. There was no one else. There was no other way to do it, And I think that was better because it let me do things sort of my own way as opposed to the real way. And so then I went through then that Blizzard of Oz hit. Remember the Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman? And man, I just got so into that. I had a black Les Paul, and I would just, try and learn those solos. And I remember, like, I was 16 years old, and I learned a lot of those Randy Rhoads solos. And I learned them well, too. I really knew how to play them, and I played them in bands and stuff. But I don't remember them today. But that really just blew me away when I heard Randy Rhoads play. And then I got into Dokken. I heard Paris is Burning on the radio. Probably that was a little later. I think I heard that. I say by that point, I was probably already 16. And at that age, at 16, 17 and there, I had already had a lot going on by way of learning from, the Van Halen stuff and Randy Rhoads stuff. But I heard Paris is Burning. I'm like, who the hell is this? I didn't know. And then a friend of mine said, oh, it's this band called Dokken. And then somehow I remember I had the Tooth and Nail record. I remember I definitely had that one. I don't remember at the other ones. I'm sure I had the other ones, but I don't know if I had them on vinyl. I probably had them on cassette. And then I started, learning those. So that was it.
Wow.
And now
yeah, and now you're in that's those beautiful story, and I think it's a great point. A lot of musicians I'm talking to, they don't really know how to read. They were really DIY and learning by themselves. And it's interesting because it's still a huge challenge, but you find your identity. And I think that's why, back in the days, there were way more different sounding in guitar and in band. And now that, when a band work, you have hundreds of bands sounding not the same exactly, but, the direction. So it's cool. And yeah, I'm sure Hendrix was too. I remember, like, I'm sure you heard the story when Clapton was in the crowd, and Hendrix asked, like, can anybody see Clapton? Can he tune my guitar?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty.
Imagine the balls on him. That would be like someone asking, hey man, was Eddie Van Halen here? Ed, can you tune my guitar? I mean, that's like that is just giant. Well, Hendrix, he played a Stratocaster with what's called a floating tremolo system. Today we have these locks on the nut, this thing called the Floyd Rose. So you can do that and you don't really go out of tune that much. But he didn't have that. So it's basically like it's like a balanced seesaw, because as soon as one string slightly goes out, they all go out. And then it's very difficult to get it back. Really difficult. Like if it's not balanced perfectly, you're out of tune. If the bridge is stable, you can tune them one at a time, and you can go out of tune just on one string and fix it. But other than that, it's pretty difficult to try and get it back. And I know the show you're talking about because Hendrix It was like the day after something like Sergeant Pepper came out.
Yeah,
I
yeah, because he
he,
cover it.
and right, he opened with a cover of that song and was going crazy. And after one song, he was all out of tune. And apparently, like everyone was in the crowd, like the Beatles guy, Paul McCartney was there. I think they all came to see him that night.
And he put himself in danger knowing that all those people, and he was not that well known at that time, everybody was talking about, but it was not the career, that we knew. It was the beginning, and man, it takes, like you said, some fucking balls to do that.
Oof.
But it showed like the guys and the personality he got, and I think that you need that, having balls, because I'm sure it happened to you on the first gig. It's putting yourself, you ain't gonna be the best the first time, but you have just to do it. And music is and you prove it. It's a feeling, and you don't need to be the best. And I'm sure Eddie Van Halen, when he started up, was not knowing everything. He was just living the feeling and the passion, and then he become what he were because of that. I think it's like, I don't surf, but I'm using always that metaphor. It's like surfing. You have to catch there's no perfect wave. You just have to go with the wave. And
Yeah,
I think that music is,
right. You're right. There's no perfect wave. There's just the wave that you're on.
yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean that your wave's any better or worse than anyone else's. That's just one thing sort of I never understood about comparing players. I mean, you could like both. You can like them both.
And they're
Or
so
you
different.
can like
I
them
mean,
all.
yeah, yeah, because like if you take Eddie Van Halen or the guitar player from Dragon Force, they're different, and it's not because you play that fast note that you're the best. It's more the creativity around that make you like. Because Eddie, destroy all those doors that people thought were closed, and I think that's the beauty. And Dokken did too at a time that it was really different. Like you said, there was no internet. You have to go out and be the louder, be the best on stage, and it's tough.
And I think without the internet, it led to a lot of creativity because people had to do things their own way because you really didn't know unless you were fortunate enough to get like front row seats to watch Van Halen, right up close. No, you didn't really know. I used to go see them live and I would try and figure out, whoa, okay, from a distance, you could sort of see, oh, his hand's up in the middle of the neck when he's doing that. So I would try and figure something out over there. But that was about as close as you got. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Yeah. So but the lack of technology led to a lot of creativity and to
yeah.
people doing it their own way because you had no other choice but to do it your own way, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Van Halen was the first show I saw when I was a kid. I'm 41, and I saw it was Sammy Hagar. It was the Balance tour, and it blew my mind. I mean, I was in love with Van Halen, but when I saw them, and Eddie Van Halen, but everybody, man, the drum solo were amazing, and even the bass solo, and
Oh,
Sammy
yeah.
came with his guitar and such a powerful voice, and it keep it, still to those days, the voice is perfect. It
Yeah.
didn't destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's cool because Dokken too, that's another thing. I think that you're one of those band, that and it's amazing that after all those years, you're still getting better, releasing better records, and you get new fans every fucking record because people are surprised that after all those years, like I said, the fire is still burning, but the chemistry behind the people involved in the band is really strong. Is it more hard with times to write new stuff, or it's still a huge challenge, or maybe it's more easy because you have the experience?
Um, for me, writing is something that just sort of magically comes when it's ready to come. And I personally can't ever force it. I mean, the only thing I can do to help it along is to play more, obviously if I'm not playing at all. Although a lot of times ideas will come to me in my twilight when I'm sleeping. Like we were on the road just like 3 weeks ago, and it was like 3 a.m. I'm in like a twilight, and a riff came in my head, and I know. I said to myself, okay, here's your choice. It's 4 a.m. It's 4. If you get out of bed and record this, you got a song, or you can just go to sleep and forget it. So I chose to get up. I got out of bed, got my guitar, 4 a.m. and I got my iPhone and I put the riff on, and I listened to it back the other day. I'm like, oh, this is a song. This is something. This is definitely something we could use. So things come when they come, and whenever you force it and try to write something, just for me, it's always just junk, and I don't want to frustrate myself. So if I usually, like, if something's going to come, a lot of times, like, it's like an inspiration that comes in here first. Like, I feel some sort of energy or something. I'm not curious. This is just how it works for me. And then when I feel that excitement and energy in here already, I just grab a guitar, and usually the first thing I play could be something. If I don't have something that quickly, then there's a lot less likelihood something's coming. It's usually right when I pick it up.
Wow. It's amazing.
Different, other people, it works differently, but that's just how it is for me.
That's impressive, for somebody like me. It's hard for me to, because I don't write music. There's a reason why I do a radio show. I'm not playing music, a little bit of guitar, but I think music is a living thing, and it's kind of prove it because it's in you, and there's time that and thank you for losing sleep time for writing such great songs. A lot of people are happy, and it's a struggle, man. You're like, oh, I'm feeling well, man. I want to sleep, and and you have to get outside that comfortable zone to write a songs, but then you're proud, and it's amazing. That's the first time I hear something like that. That's impressive.
Oh, thank you. So other times, to keep things fresh for me, what I experiment sometimes with alternate tunings and capos. Like on this album, I did that a couple times. The Over the Mountain riff,
Yeah.
that's a tuning, and I had a capo a friend of mine got me. I'm like, oh, let me throw this on here and see if I can. I wanted it to feel more like a high strung guitar, And I put a capo on there. I had my guitar tuned to E flat with like a drop D, and then I put a capo on like the second or third fret. I think the second fret. I don't know if you played, but it just changed the entire overall sound. I'm like, as soon as I played one chord, I'm like, ooh, I really like the tonality of this. It sounds different. And when you start doing like that, like some of the finger positionings react differently, and you start getting different things. And even though they might sound like something simplistic, like you could play that in a regular A chord, but it won't have the mojo. It's
It's
not
cool.
riff, but it just sounds more unique based on that capo there and the alternate tuning.
Yeah, and that's a thing, you never restrain yourself to follow just a line with Dokken. You always try thing, and I think that's when band are still interesting, because like there's band that recreate their best records, and it doesn't really work. Like you said, if you force thing, the result mostly of time is something that you're going to be disappointed in a couple of years. And I never get, back in the days, I get the way people got in studio. You have 2 days a week or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you have to release it because there's a deadline. But now with technology, I don't get why people release records that they're not proud. When you release it, you have to tell yourself, in 10 years, would I be proud of that? In 20 years? Because it stay there. And yeah, so it's cool because when I listen to Dokken records, every era of the band, there's always something interesting in the evolution. And there's no, like I said, a line draw that you follow. Of course, it's a song, and we know it's Dokken, but it's different. And I think it's cool, and it was the best weapon that you had with time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because with time, a lot of time went by between the time we finished and the time this came out. It was like a year, and I didn't listen to the done product for quite some time. Like, right when you're mixing, you hear every song so many times. At that point, it's like, okay, you're like, okay, I got to move. There's an old saying: records don't get finished; they get abandoned. So at some point, hey, got to move on with life. So this record is now done. And then when I went back to it like 2-3 months ago, I started listening to it again 2 months ago. You hear it with a completely different perspective, because now you haven't heard them in so long, and you hear it as more like a whole. It's hard to explain, but you have fresh ears with it, and you're not analyzing it the same way. And what I noticed was some of the songs for me started sort of growing a life of their own. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
once that happened, I started thinking, I realized, oh, you know what? We have something really good here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And again, it's a living thing because those don't change a little bit, with time playing them live. And you have to, you know, it's cool that band do like exactly the same, but it's cool too when, they put a little touch, something in there and they're live. And it's cool for the fans also because yeah, because when you're live and you have that energy, it's yeah, you can bring other thing to the songs. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So it was you know, the whole situation, just by virtue of the fact that it was COVID when we did it, altered things for us because Don used to live near me, and we used to, like on Broken Bones, for all the records, we'd get together and I'd come to him and I'd play my riffs. I wouldn't record tracks and say here, because he lived right near me. I'm like, hey, like we would hang out, order dinner, I'd play guitar, he'd play guitar, we'd screw around until finally, may I play a riff? He starts humming something, and he's like, and I get it on the handheld. Okay, you like this one? All right, let's go for this one. We'd collaborate. On this one, with COVID, we had to work independently, and that was a whole. I just also think during that whole time, at least for me, the whole horrible COVID thing, it evoked more of an emotional experience too. I really entrenched myself in the studio. Like, I spent a year in my recording studio, writing. I mean, not a lot of the songs, were the Dokken songs, but I probably wrote 3 albums worth of stuff. A lot of the things I just never played for Don, because if I think it's like so far outside of what we do, I'm like, I don't like to. If I feel like I have something that I like, that for whatever reason it's really musical and it's cool, I'll record it. But if it's just way outside the Dokken camp, I'm like, I just know I'm not even going to play the flavor. I'm like, my wife will be here and I'll be like, you like this one for Dokken? She's like, no. I'm like, no, me too. She's like, I like it, but it's not a Dokken track. I'm like, I agree. And then I won't even play him those.
So it's cool. In a years or two, we're gonna talk again because there's gonna be solo stuff coming out.
Yeah, who knows? I never heard a guitar solo album I ever really liked. And then, like, Ingve does it amazing. Like, he can do solo stuff, but for the most part, I don't really write guitar solo stuff. I mean, if something cool came, well, that's not true. I have a couple instrumentals, but they're not what you would think if you heard them. They're not shredding guitar. In fact, there's no leads on either of them. They're just one's like a real Celtic feeling thing, but it's not like what you're thinking. I don't know how to do that instrumental guitar solo thing. Yeah, I to me, it's really, really difficult to do something like that and keep it fresh. I mean, whenever I hear people do that, I get bored. So I'm like, I don't think certain guys can do it and make it really cool. Like Nuno Betancourt can write instrumentals, and they're just like mind blowing. Some guys can do it. Ed Van Halen. Unless you're at that level, to me, don't do it. Get a singer.
Yeah, yeah. When you're disappointed to so many records, you say, "Oh, I will not make that mistake for me." And it's different to everybody. But it's cool that you took that time and changed something negative into something positive. Because watching Netflix, it do the job for a week, and then you get fucking bored and you're stuck inside. So you want to create, and I think that creating, it's like drugs, and you got so deep in that involvement that you forget everything around, and a year later you have, like you said, like material for like 2 records. And
yeah, you're absolutely right with what you just said, because I remember I was watching television, probably Netflix. I'm thinking, okay, wait a second, this could go on for a long time. Am I gonna just waste a year or two of my life in front of a television? I'm like, I'm not doing that, man. I'm not watching television. I'm not doing it. And I got in the studio every day.
wow, that's discipline.
Wake up.
But
yeah,
I think discipline is the main key in everything. The motivation came with discipline. So yeah, that you had that discipline, it follow you to everywhere, every aspect of your life.
Yeah, that's true. You have to have that, I guess, with anything you sort of want to do. But what I learned by way of that. But you're right, because I used to think that I was only capable of writing things late at night, but I started getting up early and writing, and I found that I liked writing early better. And I was watching a Michael Schenker thing once, and he was talking, and he said, "Yeah, I get up early to write." And I'm like thinking, "Oh, let me try that," because I never thought it would be like that would work, but it works better. for me early. First thing, I would get out of bed. I wouldn't even go into the kitchen. I'd go right into the studio, man. Start just boom, just noodle around for a second. What am I feeling? Anything. I would get my handheld going. Go back and listen to the track I threw down the night before. That's good. That's shit. That's whatever. That's awesome. I'm going to finish this one. I'm going to finish this one now. Did
It's
it like that?
again, it's really impressive because when I wake up, it takes me an hour just to remember that I'm in, that world.
Well, you got to get that the frame of mind for me to get to that. Like for example, like right now, I'm not feeling like going in the studio. Like I don't force it. I have to feel like an energy, like a motivated. It's hard to explain, like an excitement.
Yeah.
Like to get in there and you know what I'm saying. Sometimes it'll happen because like as I'm going through life, if I have an idea, like the thing I put down in the hotel room 3 weeks ago, right? So on my handheld, along with a couple thousand other things that a lot of them I never even go through. But sometimes I'll start scrolling through them. And when I'm doing it, if I feel like I have something that could work for Dokken, I put it on my iPhone, and I'll title it Dokken riff, whatever. And then at some point I'll go back if I feel like it, like, if I go back and listen to it, then I might get inspired. And if I get inspired, I'm like, you know what, let me just go in there and studio and throw down a quick basic drum beat and see what this sounds like. And sometimes, you think you got a great riff or part idea, and it's not just a riff because I usually try to get an intro, a verse, a B section, and a chorus. I try to get up through the second chorus to see if I have something. But a lot of times you take the riff and you throw it down, like, you know what? This doesn't work well with the drum beat. It's just shit. Or sometimes it comes to life with just a basic drum beat. It's like, okay, now I'm excited for this one. And I'll throw the riff down. I'll throw those 4 parts down. I'll get it through a second chorus. I'll throw a bass on top of it because I'm not a bass player, but I have a bass that Don gave me because you want to feel like it's a track. So I'll play bass on it. And then once I get it there, I'll start tweaking up the drum track, and I put in fills. I make the drums actually really good on the demos because if I'm going to play, I know like for Don, he needs to feel inspired too. And when I put in like some announcements and fills, and sometimes I'll make it almost completed. Like I'll put in a mock solo even, I did that on Gypsy and Fugitive. The solos that made it to the record were really the demo solos of what I originally played him. I fixed them up a little bit because they were the scratch solos from the
Wow.
original tracks I played to Don.
I didn't know that. That's impressive
Yeah,
again.
he said to
Wow.
me, man, when we were in the past, he made a good decision on this album. In the past, we would always do all the demos, and then okay, demos are done. Let's cut guitars, and then I would learn them, go back, relearn them, and re-record them. So and this one we didn't do that. On this one, Don's like, you know what? I'm happy with all of your demo performances because and in the past we were always like we wanted more of like an off the cuff performance. But I realized, every time you relearn something and replay it, it's like you're making a facsimile in a photocopy machine, right? Because
Yeah.
first you record it on your handheld, that's version 1. You have to learn it off that, get it onto a demo, version 2. Demo to re-recording it on an album. So now you're 3 copies in, and there's a degradation a lot of times from version 1 to 2 to 3, So I think that, when Don called me and said, hey, I want to leave all of your scratch rhythms, even though there's some stuff in there that's slightly off, I'm like, you know what? I thank you. I agree. Leave it all. Because otherwise we're going to try and chase it. And you can sterilize it. It was a good decision. I'm really, I'm hoping like that's the way for us to go.
Wow. Wow. With the release, how's going to be the rest of the year for you guys? We're almost at the end. And how's going to be 2024?
Well, we have like 6 or 7 more shows to complete out the year. 2024, I guess we're going to hopefully get on a tour with somebody, I know we're going back to Europe end of 24. So yeah, that should be cool.
That will be cool to have you in Canada and Quebec. You have huge amount of fans. And I know there's a love affair between, Quebec, Montreal, Quebec City, and Dokken for all those years.
We haven't been there in a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
We
know if I.
miss you.
Yeah, we'll have to change that. We love playing in Canada. It's great. I know the last time we played there was at in what's it called, Sault Ste. Marie.
Yes.
Yeah, at a festival there. Sorry, I've had like something in my eye this whole interview. Uh,
Don't lose your eyes on that interview, man.
uh, bugging me. All right. Anyway, yeah, but we of course we would love to get back there. You know.
Will be rad. It will be rad, seriously. And of course, the new records, we invite people to go grab it. What's the best way to directly encourage you guys? I know there's collectors and a lot of fans.
To get the record,
Yes.
I think you just go to Amazon and find it. It's probably the quickest way. I would imagine it's up on Amazon for sale. Isn't it? Everything's on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Or lightning strikes again and for sale, and I'm sure it'll pop up on wherever the label put it. You know.
Hell yeah. Who did the artwork, by the way? The artwork is amazing.
Uh,
And it's always been amazing.
uh, Don, I think, comes up with the I think I wasn't involved in that, so I'm not 100% sure, but I know Chris McCarville did a lot of it, if not all of it. Don came up with the concept. Maybe someone else was involved too. I'm not sure, but it was that. I didn't have anything to do with the artwork, but I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Buy the
Kill,
vinyl.
killer. Yeah.
It looked good. You can put it on the table and people will say, wow, man, that's beautiful. And you put the
Yeah.
fucking record.
Yeah. I might look to try and see if they print some posters of that, I might be in the market for one.
Yeah, because they're amazing. Guys, thank you so much. After all those years, it's a band that it's more than accurate, and thank you. You have legions of fans, and of course, we're gonna wait for you in Canada, Quebec. And again, we invite people, go grab the records. If you don't have music budget, we get it. It's hard times. It's available everywhere, every music platform. Go learn the songs and challenge yourself. Sing them loud.
Awesome.
I'll learn the guitar part.
You know what? I might. I have a website. Maybe I'll. If I have some time, which is hard, but if I have some time, maybe I'll throw on my guitar website up a couple of how to play some of these songs.
Oh, that would be great. I love that. Those kind of tutorial with the people who wrote the songs. I listen to that, and I'm not even playing guitar. It's a fascinating the way and how you play. Because when you hear by here, sometimes you play it incorrectly, but it sounds similar. And when you see it, you're like, "What the fuck? I didn't get that. You have to do that."
Well, when we did the video for Fugitive, I'm like, I forgot how I played this, man. I had to go back, and Gypsy too. I had to go back, and actually for all of them, we just shot 4 more videos. I had to go back and relearn them all. I'm like, when you're in the moment, you do. I like doing odd chord inversions. Like it's rare that I play like generic bar chords. Like I almost never do that, And I had to go back and like, man, for the life of me, like, for some of it, I couldn't tell what I was doing. I had to go back to the tracks and solo it. I'm like, what is that? And you do what you do in the moment. It's not like you ever thinking, oh, I one day may need to relearn what I'm doing here. You just do it.
Damn right. My friend,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I seriously had a blast. Love the records. It mean the world that you took time for us. It was a huge honor, and we're gonna do a huge Dokken special, of course. And it's fun because when there are so much records, it's so easy to do a 2 hours thing because we can go to every era of the band and
I'd
put
be,
new songs.
yeah, just let me know if you want to do that. That'd be fun. Sounds like a blast to me.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time. Have a blast today, and thank you, brothers.
You got it, man. Enjoy. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.